Hello friends, welcome to my channel Science Biology for a new video session. Here, today we will discuss in detail about the various other parts of the female reproductive system. We have already discussed about the section of ovary showing the maturation of the follicle or the primary follicle to form the Graafian follicle, which results in the liberation of ovum, which we call the ovulation. And we have also studied different function of this corpus luteum, which is formed after the liberation of ovule or the secondary oocyte from the Graafian follicle, and this corpus luteum secretes different female sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone, also inhibin, and that again converts into corpus albicans, which degenerates gradually. So we have studied in detail about the structure of the ovum. My dear friends, so now we will start discussing the other different parts of the female reproductive system. So let's see what are the other reproductive structures associated with the female reproductive system. So now let's discuss about the other important organs of the female reproductive system, and this is the section view of the female reproductive system, and the diagram is exactly as the NCERT. So we can easily understand here these structures are the ovary. These are the ovary, and they are present on both the sides of the uterus, which are attached with the oviduct, and that oviduct is also known as the fallopian tube or the uterine duct, and it is also attached with the help of the ligament to the uterus, uterine ligament. Okay, so these are the two ovaries on either side of the uterus. Away from the ovary, these ducts that connects the ovary with the uterus, that we call as the oviduct or fallopian tube. Okay, so the fallopian tube is the most important part after the ovary, because when the mature Graafian follicle liberate the secondary oocyte or the ovum, which the secondary oocyte will form the ovum, that ovum is carried out with the help of this oviduct through the finger-like projections. These finger-like structure accept the mature ovum, which enters through these finger-like projections, which we call as the fimbriae. So these are the fimbriae which accept the ovum, which is liberated after maturation inside the ovary by rupture of the follicle. Which follicle? It is the mature Graafian follicle. Clear? So it receives, the fimbriae receives it, and this fallopian tube is divided into three important parts. If we will talk from the ovary towards the uterus, then the first part is infundibulum, then the ampulla, then the isthmus. So we can divide this fallopian tube or uterine duct into three different parts. The finger-like projections are the fimbriae. Away from that, we know that this duct is divided into three parts: infundibulum, ampulla, and isthmus. So these are the three important parts of the oviduct. Clear? So infundibulum at the end forms a funnel-like structure where the finger-like projections are there, and here the opening is also there, which is called as ostia or the ostium. Okay, which receives this ostium. This ostium receives the mature, the newly liberated ovum, and takes it into the oviduct. It is held immediately over ovary. This oviduct is very close to the ovary, so that once the ovum is liberated, it enters through the fimbriae or through the opening, which we call the ostium, into the infundibulum. Okay, so it draws the discharged ovum, mature ovum, into the oviduct. Next part, if we will go to the ampulla, this is the part it is the dilated part present intermediate to the isthmus and the infundibulum, in between the isthmus and infundibulum. So ampulla, remember, is the place for fertilization. Ampulla of the fallopian tube is the place of fertilization, where the ovum waits for the sperm to come, and fertilization takes place in the ampulla region of the oviduct or the fallopian tube. Next part is the slender narrow structure which we call the isthmus, the third part. Okay, it joins the ampulla, the second part, with the uterus. So this is the uterine cavity, this is the uterus where the mature zygote undergoes different developmental stages. It attaches to the wall of the uterus and develop into a mature fetus, or the child develops inside the uterus and comes out after proper development. So isthmus is the connection of the ampulla with the uterine cavity or the uterus. Okay, so the uterine part runs through the wall of the uterus. Again, if we will take another part, then we can call it as the uterine part. After isthmus, it runs through the wall of the uterine cavity or the uterus. So in some books the uterine part is mentioned, but it is actually, if we will take, it has three important parts: the infundibulum, the ampulla, and the isthmus. Okay, so the wall is muscular. The wall of the the oviduct or the fallopian tube is very muscular, and it performs the peristaltic movement so that the ovum can easily pass through the oviduct to reach the uterus. So it is the conducting system or the duct that collect the mature ovum from the ovary and takes it to the uterine cavity. Okay, so the wall inside or the inner wall of this oviduct contains ciliated cells that help in bringing the ovum, mature ovum, to different parts like infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus into the uterine cavity. So what are the functions? What are the different functions of this oviduct? Yes, the most important function is that it collects the ovum, and it helps in the transportation of the ovum. It conveys the ova from ovary to the uterus. Okay, and the transportation takes place by two different means. One is the muscular contraction relaxation movement, which is also seen in case of the alimentary canal, that is peristaltic movement. Here also that is important. And here another structure, that is the cilia, which is present in the ciliated epithelial cell in the inner lining of the oviduct, also helps in bringing the ovum from the ovary to the uterine cavity. It also provides nourishment. The requirement of nutrients is also fulfilled by this duct to the ovum. And another important is that it assists the movement of sperm also. When the male and female, the copulation occurs between them, the sperm is ejected to the vagina, which is carried through the uterus to the oviduct. I have told you that the ampulla is the place for fertilization, so that the sperm also need to travel the distance through the uterus to reach the ampulla. And here also the cilia guides the sperm and helps the sperm to travel to reach the mature ovum present in the ampulla region. Okay, and it also directs the unfertilized ova to reach the uterus. So it is very important structure in female reproductive system. So after this, after the oviduct or the fallopian tube, or we can also call it the uterine duct, the next part, which is very important in the female reproductive system, is the uterus. and the uterus is the largest part where the child grows. Here it is mentioned, which is known as uterine cavity also. Okay, so it is a pear-shaped hollow muscular organ. It is a pear-shaped, triangular in shape and hollow muscular organ. And another thing is that this is also called as womb, where the child grows and matures. Okay, so it is present at the center of the pelvic cavity, uterine cavity. It is also the pelvic cavity. It is located in the pelvic cavity. Okay, so it is the length of the uterus is 7.5 centimeter, approximately 5 centimeter wide, 7.5 centimeter length, wide is 5 centimeter, then 2.5 centimeter thick, 2.5 centimeter thick. The thickness of the wall is 2.5 centimeter, and its weight is around 30 to 40 grams. Okay, so remember, length 7.5, wide 5 centimeter, 2.5 centimeter the thickness of the wall, because the wall is made up of 3 different layers: perimetrium, myometrium and the endometrium. Perimetrium is the outer one, then the myometrium, and the innermost wall is the endometrium. And remember, this endometrium flows out every month during menstrual flow, during the menstrual cycle. In every 28 days, approximately 1 month, this endometrium layer flows out. So the endometrium is the layer that flows out. Okay, so what are the parts of this uterine cavity or the uterus? The fundus. The first part is the fundus. Okay, uterine fundus, it is mentioned here, uterine fundus, you can see. The second part, or the most important part, is the body of the uterus, and the last part is the narrower part, is known as the cervix. Here you can see the cervix is the narrower part, or the part near to the vaginal opening. Okay, so this is divided into 3 important parts, my dear friends. What are they? The uterine fundus, the body, and the cervix. Okay, so the cervix is the lower constricted part. It is also known as the neck. So the cervix is also known as the neck because it is narrower and it is connected with the vaginal opening. So the menstrual flow comes out through the cervical canal and the vaginal opening. Remember, this cervical canal and vaginal opening together forms the birth canal through which the well-developed child ready to come out is delivered through this cervical canal and vaginal canal, which together forms the birth canal for the child, through which the child take birth. Okay, so these are the different walls. Remember this one, these 3 are important: perimetrium, myometrium and endometrium. Okay, so these uterus or the uterine wall has the most important function because it is the home for the developing zygote. The zygote, after being developed, it get implanted in the wall, in the inner wall of the uterus, grows there, develop there, and after its maturation it comes out. So it is the place of accommodation for the fertilized ovum till the child birth. So till childbirth, this is the home for the fertilized ovum. It provides accommodation. Okay, so after completion of pregnancy, the fetus expel out, which is known as parturition, or childbirth. Okay, so after proper development, it comes out, it expels out from its accommodated place, that is the uterus, through the birth canal, which is made by the union of cervical canal and vaginal canal, to outside. Okay, so next structure we will move on to the vagina. So it is the genital organ. It opens, the uterus opens into the vagina. It is elastic muscular structure, and it is the copulatory organ of the female, through which the penis, the copulatory organ of male, enters during copulation, and the sperm or the semen is ejected out into the vagina. So it is lined with stratified squamous epithelium without any glands. No glands are present in this vagina. Okay, so it is lined with stratified squamous epithelial cells. It measures about 7.5 to 10 centimeter in length. Okay, 7.5 to 10 centimeter long, and runs from cervix to, it runs from the cervix region to the outer genital structures that we call as the vulva. So vagina is the structure, the copulatory organ of the female. It runs from the cervix to outer genital structure, the outside the female reproductive system that we see outside constitute the vulva. All the structures together forms the vulva. So it is the connection between the cervix and the outer structures called vulva. So what are the functions? Functions of the vagina. It releases the menstrual flow during menstrual cycle. It works like the birth canal during delivery of child or the parturition of child or childbirth, and it is also the organ of copulation, and it receives the penis during sexual intercourse. So it is also very important according to the different parts. If we will go in different parts of the female reproductive system, vagina has significant importance. Okay, so the vulva, finally, the external structure, external genital structure of the female, the vulva, it includes the mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, and the structure which we call the vestibule. So in this vulva region, there are two small bean-shaped glands present. So these glands this gland is in pair, that is the Bartholin gland. This is very important. The Bartholin glands are present, and these are in pair and very small in structure. So they help in the secretion of different lubricating fluid. They secrete the lubricating fluid which lubricate the female genital organ during sexual intercourse. Finally, the last structure that we are going to discuss is the clitoris, which is the erectile structure, very small structure. It is homologous to the structure in male reproductive system. We call that penis. The penis is the male reproductive organ, or the main genital organ, we can say. So the genital organ, that is penis, is homologous to the clitoris. Here the clitoris is homologous to the penis in male. So they contain the erectile tissues, as we know that in case of the penis also erectile tissues are there. Here also in case of the clitoris, which is seen, which is a part of the female reproductive system, it also contains the erectile tissues, erectile structures. So these are the different parts of the female reproductive system. And here this diagram is very important because it shows the most important, the ovary, the primary sex organ of female. It shows how the primordial follicles in the ovary get mature. Some of the primordial follicle mature to primary follicle, and they develop gradually to form the mature Graafian follicle, which liberate the ovum. Finally, the ovum, and this ovum is collected after the rupture of the Graafian follicle. The ovum is released from the ovary, and which is collected by the ostium, and it is the finger-like projections helps in collecting the ovum, released ovum. So the fimbriae collects through the ostium, it enters, travels through the infundibulum to ampulla. If fertilization occurs, then ampulla is the site for fertilization. The sperm enters through the vaginal canal, through the cervical canal, through the uterus to the ampulla where fertilization takes place, and the developing zygote comes and attached to the wall of the uterus where it develops, and after maturation it comes out through the birth canal, and the process of taking birth or delivery is known as parturition or childbirth. Okay, so this is the overall view of the female reproductive system. This video contains A to Z of the female reproductive system, starting from the primary, secondary, primary sexual structure of female to the secondary and the supporting structures. All are there in this video session, so you can get a complete idea about the female reproductive system. So these two diagrams are essential also for the board students who are preparing for their boards. This diagram represents everything of the female reproductive system, and this particularly the ovary section of the ovary showing the development of the follicles. Okay, so this is all about the female reproductive system. If you like this video, hit the like button. It encourages me for making more videos for you. If you have doubts, please comment below, and if you have not subscribed this channel, please subscribe my channel CM's Biology and hit the bell icon. Thank you very much. Keep watching. Stay tuned.